Law, A Personal Journey series. And as you all know by now that in this series, what we do is, we have lighthearted and informal conversations with different lawyers and know a little bit about their lives, their journey as lawyers, and the diverse decisions that they have made during their um, law journey throughout during their law school and their practice today. So we get a glimpse of that and we learn from that. So we welcome today Mr. Aditya Vikram Singh, who has kindly agreed to join us for our today's interactive session. To give a little intro about Mr. Aditya Vikram Singh, he did his BA LLB, 5-year BA LLB bachelor's degree from National Law School of India University, Bangalore. And immediately after graduation, he joined Luthra and Luthra Law Office in New Delhi. After that, he joined Wadhwa Law Chambers, where he was dealing with criminal law matters. And currently he's associated with Khaitan Co. in the Delhi office, where he's heading the dispute resolution team. He has worked on diverse matters, and I hope that during the session we will get to know about them in detail. So welcome, Aditya. Thank you for joining us today. Very, very warm welcome. To give you a little brief intro on what we are going to do today, it is, of course, it's going to be an informal discussion, and it's going to be a 45-minute session. The first half hour, Mihika, our first-year law student, she's going to interact with you. She's going to ask you a few questions. I'm sure they are all interesting questions that Mihika has prepared for you. And the rest 15 minutes, we are going to open the floor for all the participants, and they can ask you questions and queries that they have. So Mihika, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello and welcome everybody. So I think we'll jump right into the questions. So sir, my first question to you is, let's start from the very beginning about what made you choose law as a career path. And is there something that inspired you? And we'd love to, hear about you talk about it.
Just Mihika, 1 second. I think Aditya is not connected. Okay, maybe he's connecting now. So I think, Aditya, we lost you for a while. And can you unmute yourself, Aditya? We can't hear you.
Yeah,
yes.
Hi.
Yes,
so
great.
There is electricity issue in my tower today. So
okay.
Unfortunately, if this again happens, because I have connected it through my phone right now. So
okay.
Whenever there is a call which is coming, now it has come, electricity.
Okay, great.
So sorry.
I think he's
Hopefully
joining.
This will stay now. Yeah.
Okay, great. Great. So Aditya, if you have missed out, I just introduced you, and Mihika is taking over and she's going to ask you a few questions. So yeah, Mihika.
Yes. So sir, the first question to you is about what made you choose law as a career path. Is there something that inspired you? And we'd love to hear you talk more about it.
Okay. So law was certainly not a confusing choice for me, because my father retired as a district and session judge in Bihar Judicial Services. So to say that I had no family background in law would be not correct. But my initial phase, I think the reason why I started off getting fascinated more towards law was when I used to see my father working, and more often I would also visit courts. So I would see him sitting on the bench, and I would also see how he's conducting the court. I would also see lawyers from a very early age. So I think it was 2001 or 2002 onwards when I used to regularly visit court, and I was barely in, I think, standard 6th or 7th. So it's a gradual way for me to develop a interest and inclination towards legal practice. So and I think everyone has a different choice and different reason for choosing law. there are a lot of batchmates who are sons and daughters of doctors, and there are a lot of people who are sons and daughters of army officers. So the point is, I have seen in law school people coming from different spectrum, different type of background. They choose law. Why? Because I think ultimately law is something which teaches you little bit about everything. You know, you are learning about political science, you are learning about sociology, you are learning about IPR, intellectual property rights. You are also learning about what are the things which are illegal or legal in the society. You develop a thought process of what is legal and what is not legal. So social acceptance of what is right and wrong is very different from legal acceptance, right? So there, this inquisitiveness in everyone, each one of us, sometimes brings you towards a direction where it becomes a natural choice to take up law, at least in to train yourself in law. Whether you ultimately practice law or not, that's a separate thing. But I think that desire to know about different things and different uh, aspects, legal and illegal aspects of different spectrum is something which I think takes a person to take a career in law or at least learn law. Uh, Other than that, from 2004 onwards, I also started reading up more about Professor Madhav Menon. So he's someone who ideated the concept of 5 years law course, and that was quite important. Why? Because my father would always bring in some write-ups and something published in newspapers about Professor Madhav Menon, and he's in true sense reformer of legal education. Reading up about his ideas would always attract me to do law someday, because he's not someone who's only respected in legal circle but also respected in various other circles, political circle. So and the third real reason why I chose law was when I see a lot of these leaders, political leaders, Kapil Sibal or Abhishek Manu Singhvi or late Arun Jaitley ji, most of these people have been lawyers. They practice law sometimes, they are in parliament sometime, but ultimate thing is that you always get fascinated with the speech of these leaders in the parliament also. So as a student in standard 10th or 11th, I wouldn't get the opportunity to listen in the court, but definitely when Rajya Sabha TV or Lok Sabha TV comes, you also see their speeches in the parliament. And when you hear them and compare their speeches with other people, you always find something special about them. So I think for me it's all about fascination which brought me to do law rather than anything else.
I think so. I especially can agree with you because even I was very fascinated by law whenever I used to read about it somewhere. And definitely, whatever you said, I think we all can relate because right now we are also slowly learning about how law teaches us almost little about everything. That was very relatable, and we definitely understood. Thank you. So the second question is, what were your initial, law school law in years in law school like? What were the initial years like, and what did you enjoy the most about your law school experience? Any memorable experience that you would want to share with us?
Uh, so law school was 5 years long tenure, isn't it? So there are a lot of things which are and a lot of things to share, because I think it will take a day to share about my experience in law school. But most important ones, I think if you are staying in a residential campus, I don't know about the life of a students in a non-residential campus, but I'm sure that would also be as exciting. But in residential campus, you have the opportunity to form committees, various committees, and all these committees are handling different events. So there could be a event management committee that we had a moot court society, we had a debating society, and we had those cultural societies, literary and debating society. So if you are engaged with few committee activities that makes your law school life way more engaging and way more busy also. So I was, for instance, part of various committees in my time, and other than studying in class hours or in library, I would also have the opportunity to have meetings of these committees, what to be done next. So there is a sense of ownership that you are adding something to your college. You are organizing an event. You are either handling a transport or hospitality for an event, or the core committee for managing the entire event as such. I think in a residential campus, I enjoyed working together across different batches and without any foundation of time. So there were meetings at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the night for what to be done next day, right? So these kind of activities could only happen when you have a residential campus. And other than that, uh, when you are staying in a residential campus, you also have the opportunity to engage with the batchmates and seniors at any point of time. So I remember there were times when at 10 o'clock in the night or 12 o'clock in the night, we would just pick up a issue which would not be strictly legal. It could be a political issue or a social issue, and we would continue debating over it till 5 o'clock in the morning, or discussing about someone's personal issues. Because a lot of batchmen would also face issues in your personal in your initial years. So we would discuss about how to resolve such issues. So the point is, my law school life, other than law, was also quite engaging. Uh, Whether it was because of committees or whether it was about the activities that I took part in. For instance, uh, I also participated in 4 moot court competitions during my time. So between 2010 to 2014, I participated in 4 different moot court competitions. Other than the inter-batches round, which used to happen within the campus, the moot court competition in a way was way more exciting. Why? Because if you compare moot court activities with any other activity, moot court activity is much more closer to your real life activity that you aspire to do after graduation. So you will be given, and I'm sure you would have already done a moot, at least inside the college or in some other competition outside. So you are given a problem sheet, and on the problem sheet, you draft your own submissions, and you also discuss with different people on campus. You research on before the court, the moot court. So that gives you a feeling that you are, doing a practical work. The way in science happens, laboratory work is closer to the real life work. Similarly, I think moot court activities are laboratory work for a law student.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And so the third question is that what changes did you see in yourself when you were in your fifth year, as compared to, you were a fresher in, when you just entered law school? What changes did you see in yourself?
A lot of changes. I think so. I grew up in different districts and different cities in Bihar. So, the background that I come from is not a typical metropolitan background. So, when you are in those cities and when you go to Bangalore, so there is a certain cultural shock that you face. And not necessarily it's bad, because I think it makes you learn a lot of new things. So from that angle, uh, I think I was not broad in my thought processes. I was restricted with the kind of resources that I got during my time in my schools. Whether you are reading up the kind of text which is driven towards a particular motive, because when you come to a college, when I went to NLS, the library contained all sorts of resources which are not driven towards shaping you in one direction. So you could read up anything and everything. This was also a time when internet was just booming, so internet was not accessible to each household. In fact, that became a concept probably around 2012 and 13, that every household started having their own internet. So uh, my change from first year in law school, as in time before first year in law school, and by the time I graduated, was much shaped by the culture and environment within the law school, and also my access to internet, getting to read up a lot of things, a lot of issues, which was merely confined to watching TV debates and TV news or reading the newspaper, suddenly moved to a completely without bounds limit of internet. You could now access anything, you can Google anything, you can read up, and you can frame your views about it, you can be more informative. So, I think when I compare myself from a first year law student to a graduate, there has been huge change in my thought processes. Also because of the fact that in law school, we get the kind of professors who shape you in a different way. They don't say that you have to think about this particular agenda, but they say that this is the way to think in different ways. So I remember my history teacher in law school, Professor Elizabeth. She would always, teach us about what historians would think rather than what historians have written. What is the background of historian rather than what historians have captured in their writing. So she was more focused towards understanding the background of the historian, why he has written, and how has he interpreted the way he has interpreted, because everything goes back to the roots of your background, the roots of your political lineage, the roots of your probably the surrounding. So law school taught me not to take up anything on its face value, rather than think about who has written it, why he has written it, and what is the reason why he has written it. At the same time, also contradicting it with some other write-ups which I never used to think about, because I always used to think whatever has been written in newspaper until standard 12th is the correct version of everything. But suddenly in law school I started thinking, no, this could be one of the views that probably the writer has written. There could be various counter views, and today I find myself so confused in the new. This is not a new internet environment anymore. This is a completely much more mature or immature environment of internet that I would call. uh, Different people, so suddenly there is an issue and you see 50 write-ups, 50 articles coming from different people. Few people would take a very balanced view, few are criticizing it, few are appreciating it. Like for instance, every year's budget, or for instance, the response of government during COVID times. There are hundreds of articles. So how do you evaluate these things uh, through your views, through your brain, is something which I would completely give credit to law school, the professors there, and the internet.
So I think what you spoke about, not taking things at just its face value, but, moving into the depth of it and why, what, how. I think it's a very important thing, and that learning we'll definitely take from this session. And so the next question is, if you were able to, then what advice would you want to give to your 19-year-old self who was just joining law school?
All right. So two advices. I think I did not dedicate time in sports during college time, which I think I should have. When I went to law school, I found uh, I found myself amongst a lot of bright students who were there, and I was completely challenged, by their thoughts, by quickness of their responses. So I thought, rather than wasting time in sports, I should focus more on reading up more. But I think in the hindsight, it was not the correct decision. Everything can go on along with the sports, and once you completely exclude the sports from your life, it takes away a lot of other things. In the sense, you also grapple with fitness, because sports is one form of daily exercise in college. Because in college, you are not used to your regular exercises, getting up early in the morning, because the moment you get up, you rush to the class. So there is no concept of exercising before going to work. Uh, so sports is something which I would definitely advise myself to have, not excluded from my life. Second thing is, between first year to third or fourth year, I dedicated most of my time in reading up about academics. I almost forgot about fiction, the non-legal literature floating around. So finally, I resumed in fourth year, but I think I lost that 3 year phase where I could have, kept in touch with other developments at the same time with legal development. So not only for me, but I think anyone who joins law school, sometimes there's so much of pressure that you think we should focus only on academics and that's how we'll make good future. But I think that would not be the correct way to look at it. One should also ensure that certain time also goes in sports, some time also goes into reading stuff which is not purely legal, but whatever be of your interest, could be social, could be political, could also be pertaining to music. So, gradually, because initially YouTube was something which was not in vogue, gradually I found by third or fourth year, YouTube became a very good platform to see, to watch different documentaries, to also listen to songs. I think internet really changed a lot of things during the time when I was in law school. Platforms like YouTube and different media channels, alternate media, which has come up between the time of 2010 to 2015, was not there before that. So these two advices definitely: one, sports activities, and second, reading up things and doing things which are not purely legal, but something of your own interest rather.
Yes, it is, I think, important to keep in touch with your earlier interests as well, and also balancing it with your academics. And the fifth question is that right after you had completed law school, what were the initial years like? Right out of law school, what were those years like?
Those were the years of mixed feeling of independence, at the same time responsibility. Independence, why? Because there was a sense of financial independence. So my first job was with Luthra and Luthra law offices, which is known in the market for high pay scale, you know. So suddenly when I saw so much of financial independence, you have money in your hand, you could do anything, but at the same time that came with some cost, because for the money that they pay, they would also expect you to, churn so much of amount of work for them so that they can also earn revenue ultimately. So with that responsibility of work, it gradually so happened that I started spending time till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the night in office. And then I started thinking that what is the point of this money when I don't have time to spend it? So I think it's always a mixed feeling when you graduate. You dream about a glorious way of lifestyle when you are graduating. Oh, I've got a job and this will happen, that will happen. But suddenly when you are in reality, you see money is flowing in, but at the same time with money, so much of responsibility is flowing in that you don't have time to see your money. So now this was capital markets practice when I started off in 2014. And capital markets practice, as you would know, that in law there are two different types of practice. One is litigation. Litigation is basically disputes oriented. So there are cases, there are issues which have already cropped up, and you are now fighting to resolve those issues. That's litigation. The other part is transactional practice. So capital markets is one such transactional practice. So what happens in transaction practice is to draft out the agreements, the documents for listing of companies or listing of shares, stocks, or QIPs, as they call it, qualified institutional placement. Different kind of agreements that you draft for different kind of transactions. And in doing those transactions, you are actually reviewing a lot of documents related to the company, about its business, about its compliances, whether it's complying with the environmental norms or not, whether it's complying with industrial norms or not. And then you also prepare a chapter on litigation So this is without going into each litigation specifically, but you also record what is the exposure in terms of litigation for the company. Because ultimately, when a person buys a stock, he also needs to be aware about the risk that the company is taking, whether it's the risk pertaining to legal matters before the court, or otherwise because of its financial condition, or because of the industrial condition that the industry itself is not doing well. So you record all of it and create a document basis which various agreements are executed. So, you would appreciate that this kind of transactional practice where you are documenting things is very different from a litigation practice where there is already a dispute which has arisen out of these documents, and that you fight before the court basis your case law research, basis the facts around. So uh, these are quite important things to look at while even deciding for yourself whether you want to get into a transactional practice or a litigation practice, or you want to be a academician. So certainly academician is something which comes to very few, and a lot of people want to directly go into transactional litigation practices. So for me, the initial phase when I joined Luthra, I couldn't grapple much with the transactional practice. I thought it requires a different kind of aptitude because there is no burning issue at hand, but there could be an issue which may arise out of the documents that you have prepared. On the other hand, litigation practice, which I am in today, is that comes with a burning issue at hand that such and so dispute has arisen. Now you have to resolve it. So these two things require different kind of aptitude, which shapes your initial life in a very different way. Until March or April of 2015, when I left Luthra, I had uh, I had stopped liking the transactional practice, and that was the reason why I quit Luthra. And then I joined a criminal law chamber with Mr. Aditya Wadhwa, and that was quite fascinating and exciting because every client would come with some problem. There are a few clients who are in jail; they want bail. There are clients who are, they have just been booked under some charges, and you have to meet the police investigating officer at the police station. Sometimes you have to go before the court and basically conduct evidences. So to conduct evidence, that requires another angle, another aptitude to discuss with the client what could happen in that particular hour. Was this really the only hypothetical? Was this the only possible situation that could have happened? So you start thinking about various ways in which you can get the client out of the clutches of charges. So you know the real issue that you find in litigation, which has direct implication on your client, puts a person like me on my feet because I think uh, you know it's not so monotonous as opposed to transaction practice, which I found really monotonous because there was no burning issue at hand at that particular time. When I changed my job from Luthra to this criminal law chamber, I found a lot of changes in my life also, because the kind of work that you do, uh, if you are not able to enjoy it, that also has ultimate effect on your health, on your mental being, on your uh, friend circle. So I really saw that change from 2014 to 2015 when I changed jobs. So I think uh, ultimately, whenever someone starts a job, a career in law, one should not be very certain that yes, this is what I have to do and this is what I'll stick with. You should be self-introspecting, and you should keep on thinking whether there is any other alternate which can keep you more happy in work. If if the answer is no, then you stick with the job. But if you found an alternate which can keep you more happy, then you should definitely move on without any regret that you are not doing justice to the assignment that you have taken up. Because at the initial stage, you have not really made anything for any office. It's for you that your learning process, which will ultimately determine after 2-3 years whether you have really contributed something to the office or not, and whether you are valuable or not.
So, sir, one of the questions that I had prepared is, related to this itself, and I'll go ahead and ask you that now. So, it's basically that you have worked in a lot of fields, like business and criminal as well. So, is there one certain field that you prefer more?
See, I think public law is something which is always exciting. So uh, if you read up about constitutional matters, whether it's about something involving personal rights of people, whether it's about ongoing dispute with elections, or so these things are always exciting. Uh, Similarly, when you talk about criminal law, when you think about offenses, uh, that's also exciting. Why? Because something has happened and you have to bring something to justice, as opposed to a commercial dispute where it's all about money. And I think ultimately all commercial disputes have to be settled rather than adjudicated upon, because every party would know that this is the loss that has been caused because of its conduct, or this is the loss that has been caused to the other party. And to strike off a deal between the two parties, that you should appreciate that this was not something which was expected of you under the contract. So things are way more in black and white in a commercial dispute, as opposed to a public law dispute where things are not completely in white and black. Those are about conduct of people, conduct of individual, as opposed to here the business activities going on in terms of a contract. So from that angle, I think there could be few people with a different aptitude who would find a commercial dispute way more exciting, as opposed to few other people who would find public law disputes more exciting than the commercial disputes. Choice is definitely on people who are choosing to take up a practice. But for me, I think gradually I have found interest in both. I enjoy today commercial disputes as much as a criminal matter. So, but this was not the situation when I graduated. When I graduated, I think I had more inclination towards a public law dispute, and I was quite averse with the idea of handling a commercial dispute. But I think it also brings in a realization that your revenue matters, where you really earn comes from a commercial dispute rather than a public law dispute. So that also sometimes shapes your views and thought processes while you are growing up in a profession. So it's just been 6 years. I don't know what will happen by the time I finish 10 years of practice. So let's see.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And also, did you always, want to work in law firms, or, working with diverse areas in different law firms must have provided you with a plethora of experiences. So can you please shed some light on, those experiences which you have seen?
Uh, just to interrupt, just before Aditya speaks, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but it's already 11:32, and I would request all the participants to start posting their questions. We will keep moving on with our conversation. Mihika will converse with Aditya, so please keep posting your questions, and Aditya will definitely answer your questions. Please, Aditya, please answer, please carry on.
So, Meka, definitely working at different offices, focusing on different areas of law, it gave me at least the personal experience of what what would be more interesting for me. But that may not be true for each of you. Everyone would have a different experience, but I'll definitely share my experience. Uh, Working in, so as I already said, when I worked with Luthra in capital markets transactional practice, that was something which I found to be not as exciting for my aptitude, because it was not a issue driven exercise. It was a due diligence exercise where you prepare documentation for company after understanding what the company does and what kind of deal that it wants, as opposed to my current practice, which is a completely a issue driven practice, where client comes with a certain dispute at hand, and it asks you that, boss, this is to be done, and this is the relief that I want before the court. So then you analyze about what bench would be more suitable for this kind of relief, because at practice we also talk about different judges having different inclination, different views. So there could be a judge who is more pro laborer. There could be a judge who is more pro industries. So you also juggle with these choices. Once the matter is filed, what judge would be best suited at, and what kind of arguments that you place before a judge that would be more convincing to him. So dispute resolution practice comes with a lot of challenges of anticipation, assumption, and developing your thought processes as per the judge, rather than a transaction practice where the two parties are sitting against each other and talking to each other about what suits their business more, so they can actually talk to each other, as opposed to a dispute resolution where you cannot talk to a judge before you are actually before the judge, and your shot at arguments before the judge will lead your client either in trouble or with a relief. So whether you want this excitement or you want a excitement of transaction to see two companies coming together and making something big, is absolutely your imagination of yourself. And with three different chambers that I have practiced with, uh, the first one, Luthra, which was purely a transaction practice, to Wadhwa, which was purely a criminal law chamber, to Khaitan and Company, which is now which has diverse kind of disputes, whether it's commercial, whether it's about criminal law, whether it's about consumer disputes. So I think I found a better balance in Khaitan. Someone would find a better balance at Wadhwa's criminal practice, and someone may find a better balance at transaction practice. But to answer your specific question about diversity, where diversity leads you, I think diversity leads you to a better understanding of yourself rather than anything else. So I always think that instead of settling down for your first job, you should keep on exploring. That's why I mentioned about self introspection, about your abilities, about your interest, about your ideas, because with time you also grow up, you also become a different person altogether. I think I'm not the same person as I was when I ended my standard 12th. So with time you should keep on checking your dreams.
Right, sir. Thank you. And
So Mihika, just one interruption. We will take a little bit of questions now, and then we can again move on to your question because it's already 11:40. I see. So Deepak is asking Aditya that please throw some light on your internship experiences, and I'll merge this question also with Tasneem, where she's asking that till what extent do the skills you learn at internships help you in law firms or courts?
Internships are really helpful if you are actually involved completely by your mentor at the firm or the chamber, because through internship you can get to know much more about the practice area of a particular chamber, and you can actually decide whether you want to end up joining that chamber in future or not. And you can also shortlist your future job opportunities in terms of internship. It definitely helps you in court, because at internship when you are sent to court, you start observing the court proceedings. You know how lawyers hassle in the courts, how they run from one court to the other and manage their court activities. So that's very important, because you should know what you are taking up. Because if you do not intern properly and sincerely at different law chambers or law firms, you end up taking a job which ultimately would be of no interest. Because I know for a fact that Aditya, your professor Aditya, he interned at different places, and ultimately he realized that teaching is something which is his cup of tea. And he definitely, after even graduation, he worked for clients on various disputes and various transactions. So, internship shapes your future. And for me also, it shaped my future, because initially through internship, I got to know that, okay, transaction practice could be a good practice and I can do it. But internship would definitely not reflect on what you would have when you ultimately join an office, because I ended up discontinuing my transaction practice after 10 months. So one way is internship, the other way is keep on seeing your dreams and seeing your interest even when you have joined an office. That's not the end game, that you have joined somewhere and that's it. You have to keep on cross-checking with yourself.
Great.
There's, I think, another question.
Yes, from Aditya, Professor Aditya. So he's asking, many law students do not think of litigation after college as the income is very low for a fresh graduate out of college. So do things improve after a couple of years? Also, please shed some light on litigating for a law firm.
All right, so definitely the market of litigation chambers is something where so in a city like Delhi, you cannot expect to earn on a monthly basis between, as in more than 20,000 or 25,000 a month. But try to take that as an opportunity to just learn for yourself, rather than thinking that uh, this will have a progression like the way people have in companies, 10% jump over their salary each year. So law is something which doesn't happen like that. 3-4 years in a chamber, you may not be earning as much, but suddenly, because of your experiences, for the time that you have invested in learning for last 4 years, suddenly you will start earning a lot. So I think money should not be a concern when you are deciding on what to be done. Ultimately, you will earn money if you are investing right time in the right type of practice. Whether it's litigation or transaction, there is nothing against any practice. Whether you are getting 20,000 rupees, so I have worked for 20,000 rupees a month after leaving Luthra with Wadhwa Law offices. So that did not deter me, because ultimately you have to sustain yourself and you have to learn more and more, which really gave me confidence to face an interview before Khaitan. So, every step in your life is a learning process. Without evaluating the money, evaluate your knowledge first, and then think about money. Money will come whether it's about after 3 years or 4 years. He also asked, please shed some light on litigating for a law firm. Okay, so law firm litigation is is very difficult to ascertain from outside, because different teams will have a different culture and a different practice style. There could be a team which purely relies on briefing a senior counsel, where you yourself as an advocate would not get much opportunity to face courts. You would rather end up briefing a senior advocate who would ultimately address arguments before the court. You would definitely be in assistance, but there are certain teams which believe in arguing their own matters in a law firm, where comes a greater responsibility on your shoulder and more excitement for you, because ultimately as a lawyer you also want to face court directly rather than only through a senior advocate. Yeah, so you will have to ascertain it on team to team basis, and therefore I would also suggest that even if someone has moved from transaction practice to litigation, the the search does not end there. You also ultimately have to see, after 4 years or 5 years in a law firm, in a litigation chamber or a litigation practice, would you be relied upon to face the court or not? If you think that ultimately you are going to end up as a briefing counsel only, there should be some thought process in you which should take you to another office, or which should take you to another alternate. There is a there is a fourth question, I think, Srishti Agarwal.
Yes, from Srishti Agrawal. Yes, she's asking about future opportunities in the criminal law practice. since you have worked at Wadhwa Law Chambers. So I think she's asking you the future opportunities in the field.
So, criminal practice history is absolutely one of those conventional practices which will never end. So there's a lot of opportunity there. So even all the law firms which never used to have their as in a team dedicated to criminal practice, today all of them have a team which is dedicated to criminal law practice. So I think even law firms have seen this opportunity in that sphere, and there are so many chambers which have grown up in Delhi only on pure practice of criminal law. I think it's criminal law practice is exciting, and with so many scams which are happening around now. There is TRP scam by news channels. There are other issues which are grappling the society everywhere, whether it's about money or whether it's about uh, the assault or harm to your body. So these two different kind of wings of criminal law. One is white collar crime, the other one is a conventional crime area. Both the areas are booming with unfortunately booming, but at least booming for the lawyers. At least they are getting a lot of work. And I think if you find interest after fifth year that criminal law is something that you should do, you must do it without thinking about money. Money would flow probably after 3 or 4 years. A gestation period may be longer in criminal law practice, because not every client that comes to you comes with a pocket of money. There could be a lot of pro bono matters in the beginning, which I have also done. A lot of pro bono matters for a year almost. So without thinking about it, if it's of your interest, you should do it.
Great, Aditya. So I don't think we have any more time, although we would love to, have this conversation going on. It was such an insightful and a detailed conversation, and I'm sure Mihika has more questions, Aditya, for you. And I'm sure other students will also have more questions, but we are running short of time, unfortunately. And I hope that, when we are operational and our university opens up, we can call you for another conversation, and we can have many more such conversations in future. It was extremely amazing to have you with us today. Thank you so much, Aditya, and thank you, Mihika, for moderating the session. It was wonderful. Thank
Sure,
you.
thank you, Ami. And as in, I'm really sorry I took up a lot of time on Megha's initial questions, and I couldn't cover all your questions. But
No, that was important, I think, Aditya.
yeah,
It was important.
correct.
It was important for all of us. We learned a lot, believe me.
Correct.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure to be with law students again. And this is after 2017. And the last time when I visited my college was in 2017. So again, connecting back with students and getting a feel that I'm again in a college campus virtually, though, is quite exciting. Yeah, thanks a lot for this opportunity.
Great. Thank you. Thank you once again. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and being there with us today. Have a good day ahead. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Bye-bye.
Bye.